Hezbollah, a powerful Shiite Muslim political party and militant group based in Lebanon, has a long and tumultuous history with Israel. Formed in the 1980s during the Lebanese Civil War, Hezbollah, meaning Party of God in Arabic, emerged as a formidable force with the backing of Iran, a staunch opponent of Israel. Hezbollah's ideology is deeply rooted in resistance against Israel's occupation of Lebanese territory. Over the decades, the two sides have engaged in numerous conflicts, marked by cycles of violence and fragile ceasefires. One of the most significant confrontations occurred in 2006, when a Hezbollah raid into Israel triggered a month-long war that resulted in significant casualties and destruction on both sides. Despite international efforts to mediate a lasting peace, tensions between Hezbollah and Israel have persisted, with both sides maintaining a state of high alert along the Lebanese-Israeli border. In a significant escalation of tensions, Hezbollah launched a series of attacks on Israel, targeting military positions and civilian areas. The attacks, which included rocket fire and cross-border raids, marked a dangerous turning point in the decades-long conflict between the two adversaries. The recent wave of violence began with Hezbollah firing a barrage of rockets into northern Israel, prompting retaliatory strikes by the Israel Defense Forces, or IDF. The IDF responded with airstrikes and artillery fire on suspected Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah's attacks have been widely condemned by the international community as acts of aggression. The United States, a steadfast ally of Israel, has expressed unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself against what it considers terrorist attacks. The situation remains highly volatile, with fears of a wider conflict escalating rapidly as both sides exchange fire and issue threats of further retaliation. As tensions escalated, Hezbollah launched a barrage of missiles targeting major Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv and Haifa, spreading fear and panic among civilians. The missile attacks, aimed at the heart of Israel's population centers, marked a significant escalation in the conflict, raising concerns of a full-blown war. The Israeli military activated its Iron Dome missile defense system, which intercepted a significant number of the incoming projectiles. However, some missiles managed to penetrate the defenses, striking residential buildings and infrastructure, causing casualties and widespread damage. The attacks on Israeli cities triggered air raid sirens, sending residents scrambling for shelter in bomb shelters. Schools and businesses were forced to close as the country braced itself for further attacks. The targeting of civilian areas drew international condemnation, with world leaders urging restraint and calling for an immediate de-escalation of the violence. The international community has responded to the escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, with widespread condemnation and urgent calls for restraint. World leaders have expressed grave concerns over the escalating violence, urging both sides to de-escalate the situation and seek a peaceful resolution. The United States, a staunch ally of Israel, has reiterated its unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself, while also calling for de-escalation. The European Union has also condemned the violence and urged all parties to exercise restraint. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting to address the crisis, with member states expressing deep concern over the deteriorating situation. The Council called on all parties to respect international law and to protect civilians caught in the crossfire. Despite the widespread calls for de-escalation, the situation on the ground remains tense, with both sides continuing to exchange fire and engage in bellicose rhetoric, raising fears of a wider regional conflict. The escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah has sent shockwaves throughout the Middle East, raising serious concerns about the potential for a wider regional conflagration. The region, already grappling with multiple conflicts and political instability, is particularly vulnerable to the spillover effects of the escalating violence. The involvement of Iran, a major regional power and staunch supporter of Hezbollah, adds another layer of complexity to the conflict. Iran has condemned Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon and vowed to support Hezbollah in its fight against Israel. The conflict also threatens to further destabilize Lebanon, a country already struggling with a severe economic crisis and political turmoil. The influx of refugees fleeing the violence in southern Lebanon has further strained Lebanon's already limited resources. The international community is deeply concerned about the potential for the conflict to escalate into a wider regional war, which would have devastating consequences for the entire Middle East. As the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah continues to rage, diplomatic efforts are underway to broker a ceasefire and find a path to de-escalation. The international community is actively engaged in shuttle diplomacy, urging both sides to show restraint and engage in dialogue. The United States, with its close ties to both Israel and regional actors, is playing a leading role in mediation efforts. The Biden administration has dispatched envoys to the region to meet with Israeli and Lebanese officials in an effort to de-escalate the situation. Egypt, which has historically played a mediating role between Israel and Hamas, is also involved in efforts to broker a ceasefire. Egypt maintains communication channels with both sides and is seen as a key player in any future negotiations. Despite the diplomatic efforts, a lasting solution to the conflict remains elusive. The deep-seated mistrust between Israel and Hezbollah, coupled with the complex geopolitical dynamics of the region, pose significant challenges to achieving a sustainable peace.